Hey everybody, this is Sunday, February 19th, and we're here for a Rain Country Dance Association interview with Ruby Luke, who's one of the organization founders. My name is Jim Drew, and I'm here with Flynn Bickley and Emily Iverson to interview Ruby about various pieces of her own and Seattle's LGBTQ plus country dance history.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, Ruby.
Hi, everybody.
So let's start back with what you were talking about just before I got the video going, which was how you got started with dancing in general.
Well, I enjoyed dancing, and then I also found out that at Seattle Center they had dancing there, and so I went to check that out also.
And about when was that?
Oh, that was in 1978 or so.
Late 70s? Okay. Do I remember as well that you were involved with a drill team in high school?
Oh yes, I was one of the original members of the Seattle Chinese Community drill team.
Wow.
And this was in 1942. Let's see, but anyway, it's the 70th year this year of the drill team.
Is it still going?
And I was one of the original members of the very first Chinese girls drill team.
Cool.
And so we set the bar for the girls to come, because before the boys had dragon training and lion dancing and boys club. The girls had nothing.
Mm.
And there was a group called Chyettes that invited me to join. And I had no social life whatsoever.
Oh.
And the only reason I got to go was because this was a Chinese group.
Mm-hmm.
Our parents were very they were against anybody that wasn't exactly like them.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was a little kid, and I define little kid as before starting school, I knew that what they were teaching me was wrong.
Mm.
And I was thinking to myself, I didn't tell anybody, but I thought, when I get my family, I'm going to teach them differently than what I am being taught right now. And I have carried that on, that I had to fight tradition. I had to fight my parents. I had to fight my peers, because tradition, girls just don't do physical things.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother would scold me for acting like a tomboy. And my peers thought I was crazy to take more PE than was required. But I was one of these weak and puny people that is the last person to be chosen to be on any team, only because everybody had to be chosen. And I hated that. And when at the age of 13, my older sister Connie and her best friend Frances, and I still keep in touch with Frances. And anyway, they were talking about going out to the fields to pick. I thought, oh boy, here's my chance to do something to get stronger.
Yeah.
And so I joined them to go out bean picking and berry picking, and my mother scolded me, of course, girls don't do physical things and all that sort of thing. But it carried me in good stead because from then on, I led a active physical life, despite what my culture said, despite what my parents said, despite what my peers said. I was fighting for what I thought was right, and I'm not sure where that came from. I mean, it might have been an influence from my brother Wing because he was different too. That because he was the one person who encouraged me. He says, "Keep doing what you're doing," even though all these other naysayers are saying this is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this, and that also helped when we transitioned from the Chinese hand laundry to the grocery store. Because my sister Connie and I were the ones who ended up stocking the shelves. And having worked out in the fields, I was well fitted for that because I was carrying around cases of like canned milk, 16 ounce.
Yeah,
Yeah,
heavy.
those are really heavy. And we would carry, we didn't have wheels or anything. We just carried the box and went to the storeroom, walked it to the store, and stuffed the shelves. And Wiggum was the one who taught us how to cashier and face all the labels front. And I still, when I have helpers coming to help me, I keep having to tell them, face, labels, front. Well, that's because when more than one helper comes, if they're looking in the cupboard, the labels aren't facing. They can't find what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I still have to hammer that in because it was, oh, let me tell you a story.
Yeah.
One time I went to the storeroom to go get another box to bring. And so I went in the storeroom, I lifted the box, and suddenly the box disappeared. I'd thrown it over my head, and it landed me in back, because I was used to lifting these heavy cases of cans and things. It was a box of, well, like Rice Krispies.
Yeah.
And the thing landed in the back of me. I didn't realize my strength.
Ruby, do you want a glass of water or anything?
Well, I have some tea that's
Oh, I'll grab it. I saw it. I'll grab it.
Cool. As if we're keeping you talking, you're gonna run out of mouth. So, you want to go back to the Seattle Center dancing in the
Oh,
70s?
yeah. Well, what kind of dancing were you doing there at the Seattle Center?
Seattle Center is international.
What was one of the first dances you remember doing there, Ruby?
Oh, I learned things like the hambo, and the pulse, and the waltz.
Wow.
The hambo and the pulse are what I'm not familiar with those. What are those?
Those are international dances.
Oh, okay.
Just from other countries, like traditional dances in other countries?
All different countries.
Cool.
And so does that does that dancing tie into the Folklife Festival, or was it separate?
Actually, I was a member of the Oni dance, was the name that we called ourselves, and we had a German suite, a Romanian suite, German, Romanian, international. Anyway, French. And we made our own costumes, and we performed at the first Folklife. In fact, we would end up being asked to perform twice during each weekend because we had 4 different suites we could call on. And so I don't have a knack for certain things, but whenever I'm presented with something, I keep working at it until I'm good. And so we were good enough that we were asked to perform. And so I go way back to the beginning of folk life.
Wow.
Amazing.
So that's part of dancing too.
Do you have any questions that you want to ask her? Because I got plenty of things to like get further up in history stuff.
Yeah, there's so
But
much.
I don't want to be the one talking all the time.
Well, like,
yeah, no.
let me ask a couple of the questions that the Committee for Membership Engagement had set out, and they're certainly not the only ones, but I think some of the questions are sort of like relatable to some of for the newer folks to the community who are learning how to dance, maybe for the first time. One question, it's really simple and it might be funny, is do you lead or follow?
I can do both.
Yes, I figured as much. Cool. And then, well, how long have you been involved with Rain Country Dance Association?
Ever since the beginning,
And you, yeah, you're a founding member, right?
yes.
That's awesome.
And Keith Gehrig and I are the only ones that go way, way back to the beginning, to the Timberline days. I say the only ones who are now still active. But
And so the Timberline started, that was December of 87, 89?
87?
I think 87.
I think it was 87.
And is that when RCDA started?
No.
Okay.
No, so the Timberline, which was at the old Sons of Norway Hall, which is now the Theatre for Cornish Arts College.
Yes.
And so that had previously, or at the time, was called Boren Street Disco, I think, and became the Timberline. And so that was December of 87 until like May of 2003, I think. Couple of ownership changes in there, and then reopened as Timberline Spirits. It had been Timberline Tavern before, and then it became Timberline Spirits at the location that's now the Orion Youth Center, where Denny comes down across I-5. And then that closed in September, like Labor Day of 2006. So we were between the Timberline Tavern and Timberline Spirits. There's about 6 months, I think, there.
There were actually 7 months
7 months.
that the Jim and
Jeff.
that took over thought it would only take like 2 months to get their Timberline Spirits going, but it actually took 7 months. And during that 7 months is when Dave Surfling of the Rockin' Horse Dance Barn stepped in to take up some of the slack. And they had set aside a Saturday for just the gay group. And if anyone complained, they were the ones that were asked to leave. And so that's one of the reasons that Dave Surfling has been asked to be one of the instructors at many of the hoedowns and so forth, because he was such a good friend from way back then.
Yeah, the Surflings taught at most of the hoedowns. They've retired from teaching at hoedowns and conventions now post-pandemic, so they won't be teaching for us this year, unfortunately. And we also danced a few times at the Little Red Hen during that period.
Mm.
And then at Timberline Spirits, and that closed around Labor Day of 2006.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when we a couple weeks later we had like 2 weeks away, and then we were dancing at the Cuff.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks to Daddy Jeff Hennis.
Mm.
He connected things up there.
Mm.
Well, it was thanks to Jim Drew that we only missed 1 week of country dancing, that we shifted from Timberline Spirits over to the Cuff.
Mm-hmm.
And so the Cuff has been a running part.
Yeah, 16 and a half years.
Wow.
Basically about the same amount of time as at the original Timberline.
Ruby, I was hoping that you could paint a picture for us for people that have never heard of the Timberline, and for folks that are maybe, considerably younger than all of us here in this room. What was it like to dance at the Timberline? What was the scene? Who was there?
Well, there was a women's side and a men's side.
And then there was Ruby's spot.
And then there was Ruby's spot.
I sat at the men's side.
Yeah, so can you describe the inside of the Timberline and how it was laid out?
Well, there's a big dance floor,
Mm-hmm.
and we had some really big crowds. We would have as many as 60 people in a
Wow.
class.
Wow.
Yeah,
And
so
then upstairs they would have ballroom dancing,
Oh.
and they had Jim, what's his name?
Jim Detweiler.
But he would be teaching ballroom dancing upstairs, and then we would be teaching tush pushes downstairs.
The main floor area was probably say 40 by 40
Mm.
and about 3 stories of interior height. So big ceiling,
Whoa.
big wood dance floor, and then like corral type walls around it.
Like
So
the pen.
and so then outside of that there were stools and places for your drinks and places to walk around without having to cross the
Gotcha.
floor.
Gotcha.
When you came in the front door, as Ruby said, the men's side was was mostly over to the left, and the women's side was mostly over to the right. There was in the far right corner, it was like a few steps up for an elevated platform, and there was this wonderful cutout with lighting behind it of like a mountain scene.
Oh, cool.
And then there was a couple of steps up from the edge of the dance floor up to the main bar area.
Mm. Wow, it sounds amazing.
And you said you sat on the men's side.
Well, that's where I was, and
Yeah.
that's where I ended up, and there was some mingling with it.
But
So
very separate for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, it people tended to gravitate to one side or the other.
Yeah. Yeah. And how long have you been an instructor, Ruby? I remember when I started, only within the last 3 years, you teaching a line dance. I don't remember which one, but you were teaching until very recently. How long have you been an instructor?
it's kind of
You were already doing some of the teaching along with
well,
Reese when I moved here in 2000.
actually, going back to the Seal Center days, I was teaching then,
Wow.
and that was in 1980, 1981. So I was teaching folk dancing at that time,
Mm-hmm.
as well as being in a group that performed twice at Folklife each year, because we had 4 different suites that we could call on, and we also made our own costumes. And then when I was in Puddletown Squares, we also formed a group, and I was the one who designed the shirts for our performing group.
Cool.
for Puddletown.
Yeah.
And was Puddletown around before the Timberline started, or was that after?
Is it after? I think. I didn't get in on the very beginning of Puddletown. I was, I don't know, probably in the third
class.
probably the third class.
What was the gay and lesbian country dance scene like in Seattle before the Timberline opened? Was there dancing at other places that you remember?
Just the Seattle Center.
Okay.
Huh.
That's when I was dancing with Scandia at Eagleson Hall and at Seattle Center. So I was doing international dancing then.
I went to the Seattle Center. The very first swing dance I ever went to, I was 18, so that would have been 1996, was at the Seattle Center. Yeah.
And they were going before I went down there.
And there's a lot to a lot of spaces there in the Seattle Center beyond just like there's a dance floor space at what's now called the Armory.
Right.
But there are some dance studios. There's Theater Puget Sound is there, and there's some dance and performance studios,
Cool.
and there's convention meeting space all through
It's
some of those buildings.
Yeah.
Cool.
Ruby, with all of your experience and sort of how you've traveled through so many different styles of dance, I imagine it might be hard to pick a favorite, but do you have like one or two or a few dances that you tend to gravitate towards?
Oh, the waltz is one of my favorites.
Mm-hmm. Cool. What about after waltz? Do you have another favorite besides, in addition to waltz, or like a close second?
Oh. Well, I just like a wide variety.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have favorite songs to dance to?
Something in Red,
Something in Red?
Yeah.
by Laurie Morgan.
Lori Morgan.
That's Lorrie. And Come Next Monday, isn't that one of your favorites? Is that the right one? I think that's the right song. I'll have to check it out. The one with Just for Spite in it. That phrase. I always remember that one. What about line dances? Do you have a favorite line dance?
Oh. Well, I'm not anymore. I mean, I can't do any of them anymore.
Understood.
I wanted to ask Ruby, what is it about dance that has kept you dancing for this, like, most of your life? Like, is there like a couple words that, like, your relationship with dance, like, how would you describe it?
Well, of course, the music and the movements. I like the ones that include feet and hand movements. I like the ones that are more interactive and not just footwork, but I like the ones that also include hand gestures to it. It just adds more.
I agree.
So I like the more complex ones.
Yeah.
So you had also been involved with the dance team, with the Rhythm Riders. Well, and you were involved with the Timberliners as well, weren't you?
Right. Right.
So,
yes, I was,
Tell us a little bit about the Timberliners.
well, it wasn't really much of a group. They just kind of did the same old thing. It was just a lot of people getting together and wearing red shirts together. But it was a start.
And so with the Rhythm Riders, you worked on the choreography of 2 of the routines. I remember one to In Between Dances. Was that the song?
I don't remember the name of the song.
So one of our waltz routines. I'll find the right one, and we can put in a little snippet of the sound. And then you did some of the work on the Soakin' Horses routine,
Yeah.
which was a combination mostly of the line dances Soakin' Wet and Hold Your Horses and Barroom Romeo.
When did Rhythm Riders form?
Oh boy, about 2002 or so, 2002 or 2003, and we had several rounds of the dance team over the years.
Kind of like sort of forming and
Right, so we would form and come up with a routine or two, and then go away for a couple of years and come back with some new people.
Cool.
And so the early board members and founders of Rain Country mostly had been involved with the dance team.
Oh wow, okay. Yeah, how did you all, what was the conversation when you started Rain Country? Like, what prompted the forming of the group?
I guess this is a question for both of you.
Yeah.
Well, and my memory there is really when we had moved when we had moved to the Cuff, and at that point, the instruction stuff was basically Ruby and myself. The DJing was mostly Betty, and then Rusty was doing some of it. But we realized that we needed a larger support structure, so that I could be out of town or whatever,
Yeah.
and so that things could continue. And so we needed to have an organization, and we needed to train DJs and instructors and increase things there, because one thing that's been seen in gay and lesbian communities around the country over the years is that when you the more dependent you are on a business to provide the country dancing, if the bar is providing the DJ, providing the instructor, whatever, then the community doesn't have as much input into what goes on. And we wanted to be able to introduce new line dances, introduce new dance styles, say we need to have West Coast swing songs that are slower, or any sort of things like that. And the best way that we could do that was to have more people involved and to be a partner with the businesses, rather than to give everything over to them. And of course, over time, back when the Timberline first started, and places like the Rawhide in San Francisco and the other Rawhide in Los Angeles and such, the overall focus of the community was less faceted. There was much more concentration with interest groups and things, and over time. And so they could have a business running a country bar 5, 6, 7 days a week. And over time, with lots more interest for people to be involved with, a lot of that faded to where they could no longer, where you could no longer have a dedicated LGBTQ country space.
Right.
It had to cover more bases. And that made it harder for any business to be focused just on our interest stuff.
Wow.
So forming the dance association allowed the community to have more control over what happened
Right.
and to create something that lasted now a couple decades versus like, oh, the bar
We're closing.
we closed
Gotta
but
go.
we sold it, or
Yeah.
was that
Gotcha. Cool.
yeah.
Does that reflect your memories on things well, Ruby?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What does Rain Country Dance Association mean to you, Ruby?
It's like a chosen family.
Yeah.
Love that. What would you like the young/new dance community to know?
Well, that it's good for them to get involved, and then they find out what it's like to have a chosen family.
Yeah.
It's, not everybody has a non-dysfunctional family. And so it's good that there are options, that you can have a chosen family and you have an interest and something that ties you together, things you can do together, the ways to have fun. And so dancing does that, as well as give you good mental and emotional and social connections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Could not agree more. Do y'all have any more questions?
You
Those
were
are
gonna
great questions.
ask about what were we talking about?
Oh my gosh.
We were curious about your history here in Seattle. Your history here in Seattle and your family's history in Seattle.
Well, we were one of two Chinese families in the University District, so we were out of touch with the rest of Chinatown,
Mm-hmm.
and so
Was that a choice from your parents to base themselves in the U District? Do you remember?
well, I don't know. We were just isolated because there was just the two families,
Okay.
and so on our way up to school, I would escort the other boy that was the only child of the other family,
Mm-hmm.
and we were just, I don't know, we were just isolated. We just didn't know what the rest of the world was like. We were not allowed to leave the block.
So you said your family ran a hand laundry.
We had a Chinese hand laundry. They had a Chinese hand laundry.
That was the other family.
Yes, the two Chinese families had a Chinese hand laundry.
And so your family, in addition to
And we lived in the back of the Chinese hand laundry. And my dad, quite the carpenter, he built a half second story where we could have our bedroom and drying room for the laundry.
Whoa.
And it was a time when all the girls had to work and the boys could do anything they pleased. And I thought it was so unfair.
Agreed.
that my family, when I have one, is going to be way different. I'm not going to teach them what I'm being taught. And it was to the stage where the only time my biological father ever touched me, he held me with one hand while he beat me with a stick with the other.
Oh my goodness.
So it was, I think I was complaining because we wanted to get our little brother to help, and he,
Oh my
it
goodness.
was just one of those things where
So
the
how-
girls had to work all the time.
So who all was in your family? You've mentioned your brother Wing and your sister Connie.
Okay, my brother William was the oldest one, and he was 6 years old before he was able to come to the country. My dad was one of those who went back to China to get an arranged marriage,
Oh.
but he could not bring his family
Oh.
back until all this legislation and so forth. So my brother was 6 years old before he was able to come, and my older sister Connie was the second one, and so the rest of the kids were born here, and I was the third one. My younger brother Robert was the fourth one, and then came Marge, and then came Betty, who was a baby of the family.
Bay?
Connie and I
Betty.
were
Benny. Okay.
Betty was the baby.
Okay,
Were-
gotcha.
were like 2 years apart, and by the time I was in the second grade and she was in the fourth grade, we became the cooks for the family, and we had to do all the work and
Oh boy. That's a lot.
and now Betty and Marge are only 13 months apart, and they would fight all the time. And Wayne was the only one who took it upon himself that every once in a while he would gather up all of us kids to go and do something fun. And by that time, we got our first car. It was a Buick. And I remember he taught us how to make potato salad. And then one day, the potato salad disappeared, and I wondered, what happened to the potato salad? My mother put it on ice to put it away for another time, and she didn't realize that potato salad on ice, it doesn't come out very well.
Oh no. Oh no.
And so your brother Wing, he was elected to the Seattle City Council, and I think the first Asian person of Asian descent elected to an office like that in the country, I think.
But going back a little ways from there, another thing our brother did was when he was in college and he was president of this and president of that, he would bring us kids to the carnival, and I would sketch people
Oh, cool.
at a booth,
Yeah.
and my younger sisters would be part of the fun house. So he would take us to a few things like that, but he took care of both the girls and the boys.
Mhm.
He didn't discriminate like our parents did.
Mhm. Mhm.
You mentioned sketching people at the carnival. Do I remember that you did drafting work for Boeing?
Oh wow.
I worked for the Boeing company for, I don't know, 30 years.
Wow.
30 years, 35 years, anyway.
Wow.
I was the only one who never got laid off from Boeing
Oh.
during all the time that I was there.
Mhm.
When I was married, my husband got laid off 5 times.
Oh my gosh.
It was a good thing that I kept working.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So were you an illustrator, a technical illustrator, or what was your title?
Well, I wanted to be a fashion designer,
Yeah.
but I was not qualified, and also found out that the field was too hard to break into.
Ah.
So I chose art. So I got my degree in commercial design.
Oh.
But then I decided, okay, in that case, I'll do the fashion designing myself. And that's where also I got a reputation for designing my own ice skating outfits when I took up
Wow.
ice skating. I did buy my skiing outfits, but I also made my own tennis outfits because in those days, they didn't make tennis outfits for my size for one thing,
Uh-huh.
and also they cost an arm and a leg, and I didn't like them. And then and that carried over into my dancing too, because
Uh-huh.
then I got the reputation that for every square dance convention, I was expected to have a brand new outfit.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
And I couldn't let my public down. So every year I would have a different outfit for square dancing. And then of course I was using them for country western also. But with the country dancing, that I had to kind of change from the big poofy skirts and petticoats. I went more for the mini skirts because if I'm teaching footwork,
Uh-huh.
they can't see what my legs are doing.
Yeah.
And when they're big old skirts, so then I changed my style, but I also had that same reputation that every year I had to have a brand new outfit.
Yeah.
Well, and those fabulous outfits and the 25 years of square dance conventions and the dancing at the Timberline, Ruby developed a nationwide reputation.
Wow.
You'd go somewhere else in the country, and in a square dance context, and he'll go, "Oh, you're from Seattle. Do you know this little Asian woman who has these fabulous dresses?"
That's amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And sometimes not even in a dance context. You just
Right.
be at a gay bar or whatever, and they say, "Oh, I've heard about this little Asian woman." Yes, you're talking about Ruby. We know
That's
Ruby.
awesome. That's so cool. So probably like when I first met you just in the last few years, you were probably wearing some things that you had made to the cuff. Is that right?
Oh, of course.
Oh my gosh. Well, that is amazing. I love that. This is so cool. I don't have any more questions. I mean, we could, I'm sure you talk for hours, but do you all have any more questions?
And I think this is good. So what we're going to do from this is you're gonna type up some of this for like one of the newsletters.
Sure.
And then we'll take the video and edit it, and we'll be able to put up at some point we'll be able to put up a YouTube video, and ideally it can be the start of a number of such things.
That would be
so
really
wonderful.
cool.
Interview
Yeah.
other people,
Yeah,
other
it'd be
people
great
from the
to
dance
know.
community.
Yeah.
I mean, Hallie with Century Ballroom and the Swing Girls.
Yeah.
Barb with Women Who Clog Too Much.
Oh,
And we've got a lot of people with a lot of history,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm sure we'll come back and interview Ruby again too.
I
Yeah.
know. That's what I would like to do, Ruby, is we'll sit with this information and then think about it a little bit and then come back to you for more stories.
I have a big envelope that includes a bunch of memorabilia
Ooh.
from the Timberline.
Oh.
So I still have it.
That's so cool.
If you want to share that sometime, I know I'm interested in that. I'm sure probably speak for
Yeah.
a lot of people.
Yeah.
You want me to bring it out?
Sure. Yeah.
So I'm gonna go
yeah.
ahead and stop the video
Yeah.
here.
Great. Great.